All right. Hi, ladies. Good morning. It might be evening by the time some people are watching. First of all, I just want to thank you, Leah and Salam, for um, coming on today to talk. This is Let's Talk with Sawait, and we talk about all things women, the many facets of a woman. And today we're going to be talking about parenting. Um, and I'm so grateful that you are here. And I want to first give you an opportunity before we get started to introduce yourselves. I'll start because there might be people who are watching and may not know me. So my name is Sawait, and I'm a mom of four children, ages 11, 9. They all had birthdays, so I'm trying to remember 11, 9, 6, and 2. So I am pretty busy most days with the kids, and I'm also a government relations advocate, and I also am a certified professional life coach. And I really enjoy working with women in that space. So let's get started with Salam. Just feel free to introduce yourself. Your children, how many kids you have, and then what you do, and maybe a fun fact about you that people may or may not know.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Salam. I have two children. One is a junior, 16 years old, and freshman, 14 years old. I'm an accountant, work full time, and I don't know what would be a fun fact about me. I like walking.
That's fun, enjoyable. Thank you, Salam. Um, Leah.
Hi, Sawait. Hi, Salam. Thank you for having us today. My name is Leah Berhane. I'm a mother of three kids. My youngest is 15. I have a 15, 17, and a 19-year-old. My 19-year-old is a freshman in college this year. And I have a daughter who's a senior. Professionally, I'm a professional in the nonprofit world. My role right now is a Chief Development Marketing and Technology Officer. Obviously, I work full time. It's a pretty busy load. I oversee 5 departments: data and analytics, technology, development, grants, and marketing. And I'd say home life is similar to work life, right? You're overseeing your kids, you're overseeing your house, you're overseeing their schooling, college applications, and everything else that comes with the house. So I would say it's pretty similar in terms of the role that I play. Fun fact, I would say my favorite thing is just laughing. I really enjoy laughing. I think I look so serious with my role and the position that I play with my children. It'd be really funny for people to see how many pranks we play on each other in the house. I mean, our house is just about my kids clown me all the time, whether it's what I'm wearing or my hair or something I said, or so I think laughing is super important to me.
I love that. I think we need to laugh more. It brings us more joy. So thank you, Leah. Thank you, Salam, for sharing. Um, so, when we think about mothering, parenting, there are a lot of things that we can touch on. But particularly, for those of us who are from Eritrea, some of us were born there, some of us were born here, but our roots are from Eritrea. And I think that so much of the way that we parent takes a little bit from there, right? And a little bit from here, America, where, we are here today. And we've been here for, maybe a few years for some of us and several years for other ones. I would love for you guys to share a little bit about how you how you mother, and like what is your uh what's your sort of vision for mothering, right? And how you go about mothering your children. And maybe you haven't thought about this, intentionally, but what's your style? And what was there ever a time where you felt like you had to fit a certain box in terms of how you should mother your children? So share a little bit about that. Salam, do you want to get started?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's mothering is like you have to see your children and see what works for them. So basically you find the balance, and then of course there are some things that are implemented in us through the culture, right? What we are and who we are that we want to keep, and some we need to let go because that really don't serve us well. We have to find the balance between the world we live in and then where we came from. So for me, it's that, and being transparent with my children. It's okay for me to be who I am and not to be the superpower, just who I'm not, you know what I mean? Because I have to fit certain box. No. So for me, it's that. It's like being transparent and then being okay with not knowing everything, and then being humble about it, and at the same time just taking the values that serves them well, finding the balance between this world that we live in and where we came from, and just yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing, Salam. As you were talking, I was kind of comparing it to maybe the way that we grew up, the way we were raised. And I think that many of us can relate, to having parents who, you didn't really question, you didn't really question them, or not that we're supposed to question, our parents, but definitely there may have not have been room to be transparent, or to say, you know what, I might not have this figured this out, or I'm sorry, right? To sometimes apologize. So it's interesting, as you were sharing, I was just kind of noting that difference, right? That I think is of value for those of us who are raising children here in the United States. I think that the kids appreciate that, and it helps to build relationship and trust with our children. So thank you for sharing, Salam. How about you, Leah?
Yeah, I would say my style, the biggest thing I want to pass on to my kids is doing things for themselves. I always tell them, don't get good grades because you're going to make me proud or you make us happy. Don't do anything for me. Do it because that's your measure of standard for yourself. And then the other thing is I always just want to instill in them to do the right thing. And that guides their decision, not because I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to get caught. And I really, if you interviewed my kids, they recently had a conversation with their cousins and they were like, oh, we don't get grounded. I don't remember being in trouble. And it's because the way we communicate and work with each other, it's not about me coming in from a position of control and enforcing things, or you're grounded, you can't do this, you can't go there. We rarely have those conversations. One thing I do reflect on that we did when they were kids that I find extremely helpful now is when we were even driving to school in kindergarten, first grade, I would tell them, what new flowers do you see? What new houses have changed colors, or things like that, just to be aware. And then we would talk, oh, what do you look like in high school? Close your eyes and tell me like who you are. Like, what does your hair look like? What do you appear like? And then I would say, like, what kind of grades do you have? Like, do you play sports? Do you do this? So my whole thing with them since they were probably infants has been their identity, to be themselves. Like all three of them couldn't be any more different, yet extremely similar in their values.
Wow, that's so powerful, Leah. And I wrote that down, that word identity. It's so powerful. Um, and I love how you have encouraged your children to, for their motivation, to be theirs, and not to be centered on what other people want for them. Starting from you, right? To say, be focused on, doing what fills you with meaning, what gives you significance, what you desire. And I think, I don't know, what would you guys say, that is the way that you grew up in your household? Go ahead. You can speak to that, Leah. How is it different?
I mean, it's different because if I reflect back, I don't know that I had any choices. I just knew that you go to school. I knew that I had to do dishes, or once we came to the US, I needed to take care of the house. I knew that I had to go to college. I didn't know there was other options. And after I went to college, I knew that I had to get married. I feel like it's a process that was laid out, and I played a part in the process that was laid out for me. But I don't feel like I was an empowered decision maker in that process.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you made a conscious decision to raise your children differently, right? And to empower them to make their own decisions.
Yeah, very much so. And it helped me become the parent I am. So I think I'm not opposed to how I grew up or anything like that, because it created who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Salam, do you want to touch on that a little bit? And maybe speak to, whether there were certain, values or ways of just living, that maybe you decided consciously that you didn't want to pass on to your children, right? Not good or bad, but it was like a decision that you made, a personal decision.
Yeah. So for me, well, yeah, there were a lot of things, right? But then, like what I said, you just decide, is it going to serve them well? It's not what you learned, or, the world has changed, and we have to adapt. We can't just live the way we lived. We have to find what works for our children and what works for us right now. So, yeah, like what Leah said, the way we grew up was beautiful. It worked then. It created who we are right now. But at the same time, we have to find what works for us. And the reason why I'm not giving specifics is because it's specific to everyone too. But just be okay. Be okay with making mistakes. It's okay. It's okay to just be you. And I think that's the hardest part is, even our children sometimes, like, they want us to become somebody else, and I'm like, no, it's who we are, and that's our basis. It's okay to be you, and you don't have everything figured out. I think that's one thing I want to pass on is be relaxed, and then work in a sense with this world, and then try to fit in both worlds, and don't live, we don't live, I grew up in Eritrea. I was 18 when I came here. So for me, I have to, adapt to the new ways, and then raise my children the way, I have to find the balance. Yeah, I would have to take whatever was good back then and what I learned, and maybe like upgrade those. And then at the same time here, also live and look at what their world it is. Don't restrict them from living their lives. And, yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Salam. Thank you. And I love how, both you and Leah both have sort of, I heard you both say it, right? That it's not that the way that, you were raised, that there was anything wrong with it. It just was different, right?
Yeah.
And how it's important for us to adapt, right? to change, to make better. There's always, as long as we're living, there's always an opportunity to live and to learn, right? And I think that there are so many value, there's so much value in as we're raising our children here in the United States and those who are, just in the diaspora, whether it's in the, in Europe or wherever, you are, there's value in making sure that our children know where they came from, right? I think for me, growing up, it was what gave me pride, to be able to be in a school where I went to school, elementary specifically, primarily was white. I was typically the only, Black student in my class. And I couldn't wait to go to junior high because that's where most of my friends who are Eritrean were, friends and family. And honestly, when I made that transition, it was the best thing ever, just to be there with them. The familiarity, you just feel comfortable, right? You just feel safe. And so I think for me, I love that we have the opportunity to do that for our children. Here in Sacramento, for instance, Salam, you and I live in Sacramento. We work really hard to make sure that our kids are able to connect with one another, whether we're having a barbecue or a potluck or, the upcoming holiday gathering. Hint, hint, for those of you who haven't registered on Saturday, but we really, try to come together. There's so much value in that, so much, value in our culture, So I definitely don't want to give the impression that, we're just completely, separating ourselves, but really just wanting to identify areas of growth, that are important. So I have a couple questions before we sort of wrap up. I kind of, so Leah, your kids are a little older. You have a freshman in college, a senior in high school, and I think a younger one who's also in high school.
Yeah, a sophomore.
A sophomore. And then Salam, your kids, your daughter and your son are in high school, right? Both of them.
Yeah.
Okay. My children are younger. My oldest is 11, youngest is 2. And so it's interesting that each one of us, our kids are different aged, different seasons of their lives. But I want us to talk a little bit about, maybe some of the challenges that you experienced in parenting your kids, wherever they are. Maybe it's in the current season, maybe it's in a previous season, but was there ever a challenge? I mean, let's be honest, there's challenges, right? If we want to look, but maybe you can share a challenge and, you don't have to give the details, but talk a little bit about how you navigated that challenge. And I'm really thinking about, the women, the mothers who are watching and who may be going through a difficult time, right? What helped you? Were there tools that helped you to navigate those challenging times? Was it connecting with your kids in a different way that helped? Was it connecting them, with individuals? Was it connecting them with activities, right? Talk a little bit about that if there's anything that's coming to mind. And Leah, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, if I could learned anything when they were much younger, is the biggest thing I could give them is that confidence of knowing I'm right there. A biggest example I could think of is my 3rd grade daughter starting school in a new school, and she's very active. So at her new school, the boys and girls played separately. So she came home and she was just like, "Mom, the girls don't play dodgeball." And I was like, oh, just play dodgeball tomorrow. She's like, but nobody does it. The whole school, it's never been done. And I told her, oh, I lied. And I said, oh, I'm volunteering at the yard tomorrow. And I canceled my work schedule. I called in sick and I made myself volunteer at the yard. I said, I'm volunteering at the yard tomorrow. Why don't you just try it and I'll be on the side. And if it doesn't work, I'll walk over there because I'll be on yard duty. And she did do it. And she never looked at me or anything like that. But there's been a lot of things that I've done like that with them where it's kind of on the under, but between us. But those moments translated to trust when it's prom and their friends are drunk or something's going on and it doesn't look safe. And even their friends are like, call your mom, that, she'll call her, or they feel safe doing that, including their friends. So I think building that bond when they're young pays off, because the big stuff is not happening when they're young. It's going to happen when they're older. So
Wow.
just that true knowing and exemplifying that you're there for them, not just by saying it.
That's so good, Leah. Thank you for sharing. And I have a follow-up question for you about that, but I'm going to let Salam answer.
Yeah. So yeah, there are many challenges you face. So for me, it's like what Leah said, connecting at any point, of course, and listening. See, the thing is being patient. So I'm also called the most patient mother because you just have, and all children are different. By the way, you have even my two children, they have different things and different parenting ways that I have to use. But I think the biggest thing is listening to your children. And then also, being patient that they'll come through. So that's what I would say is just be patient and connecting, like what Leah said, when they're younger, that will translate because they'll always come back to you, especially as teenagers now, and things happen, like building confidence too. And just, you can do it, sometimes they just want to get out of it, right? When something is uncomfortable, they just want to get out of it. But then like it's their, something they signed up for, and just watching that they can do it. And generally parenting at the end, like, when they're teenagers, I know Leah probably can relate with that too, is that just watching, right? Watching and just kind of just applauding them for the good and then encouraging them for the stuff that challenges them. And you're just watching. So basically because they're growing up and you're building their independence, and something that you basically worked on as a mother and then intervened, you don't intervene as much anymore because you want them to be individuals, you want them to be independent, and they're growing up. So you're basically like pretty much watching, and that comes control I'm going to talk about, because culturally, we don't want some things that we didn't like, but we have to watch them grow up. And it stays, the values we implement on them stays. And I see myself now, like the control part is the hardest part to let go, is that we have to let go of control and then believe in our children, at that point, because we're like, okay, they're growing up and you have implemented values. And you see, when you talk to them, the values that you implemented when they were younger, you'd be surprised they're there, and I think that's the hardest part we bring from our culture, is like, for me at least, is the control, right? Wanting to be, and it could be for all mothers, right? For most mothers, where they want to be in control, they want to be, but then I'm like, okay, I have to let go. And some stuff, like my daughter just had a birthday party and she's like, some of the stuff I just didn't even, and didn't say anything, because it's like, you're growing up now, you have to navigate the world, and it's okay for me to just step away and then let you do it. And I see that they're still the values. And it's funny because we say like the culture, the values we implemented. And for me, I'm like, whatever culture you follow, it's okay. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's okay to be as the way we are. Our culture is okay. As long as we try to also see, what's the culture around here and what fits our children. So it's okay to be us, to create our own culture in our home. There's nothing wrong with coming from where we come from. In fact, it's beautiful, but just upgrade it, for me, at least that's what works.
Wow. Wow, Salam, you said so much. Oh my goodness. both you and Leah. And I love the connection. I love how you laid out how, your kids are at an age where you're watching, you're observing, and not so much telling them what to do. And I think that that's what happens, right? As your kids get older,
Yeah.
it's difficult. I mean, um, and of course, you mentioned how we didn't necessarily grow up that way, right? We heard a lot of, you need to do this, you need to do this, don't do that. Very different. And Leah, going back to what you said, you made a statement, and I'm not going to say it exactly the way you said it, but if you focus on relationship and building trust when they're young, it'll be easier, to handle the big stuff when it comes, right? And so I think that speaks to the importance of building trust, building with your children when they're young, so that when they're older, they'll come to you. You don't even have to come to them, right? They will come to you and ask you for help. They'll come to you and say, "Oh, I like this person. What shall I do?" Right? And so, Leah, you and I have talked separately, and you've shared things with me about, your mothering experience, your journey, and you haven't said this, but I'll say it, and it's been something that I really admire, and I think it's awesome. And what it is that your children have the freedom, or feel the freedom to come to you in that way with things, right? And you're not necessarily hounding them for information, but they actually come to you. And so it's, you've done such an incredible job, it sounds like, building that trust from a young age.
Yeah, and it's actually not easy, right? You build that connection to the point where they ask you very vulnerable questions. So that's what I started realizing once they were in high school, or especially with my son last year, and allowing him to have a girlfriend because he was ready and things like that. What that means, and how it's really just about friendship, and respect and things like that. But yeah, with that trust comes questions that you're not comfortable with. And it made me need to act like an adult, right? I'm the adult, but I would feel like, oh my God, can I just go under this couch? Like, I don't want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So it makes you mature in a different way. There's different chapters of parenting, and there's different ways where you have to challenge yourself and figure out what you're comfortable with.
I love that.
How trusting and how much do you want to give them about yourself, and where that balance is, where it's still a parent, where it's still very nurturing, respectful, but also transparent. You can't be all the way transparent because you're still a parent at the end of the day. But it's a fine line.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And it's a great way to sort of close our conversation, because you almost touched on it a little bit, but you are put in these sort of uncomfortable, situations as your children are growing, and are asking hard questions, right? And it almost speaks to the importance of growing as mothers, right? Growing with our children, not staying the same, right? Not staying in a box, but growing. And so my final question for you before we close, and I ask you to share one takeaway or piece of advice that you have for moms, is what do you do to fill your cup up? What do you do for self-care? How do you fill yourself up to make sure that you're getting what you need, that you're growing, so that you can respond to the needs of your children as they're growing? Salam, do you want to share first?
Yeah. For me, I read self-help books, children's books, teenager books, and all those books. And then also being an example, right? And do what I need to do, like eating healthy, and going for walks. So I'm always on top before before I tell them to do what I want them to do, basically they do. I'm the example. I guess that's something that because if you work on yourself, if you work on your happiness, and then you're basically, you know, when you love yourself, you love everybody else around you and you fill your cup. So yeah. And I walk, at least I try to walk 5 miles a day, and you know, in between work. And so yeah, so just yeah.
That's awesome. That's so good. I love that. I'm going to quote you: when you love yourself, you love everyone else.
Yeah.
Thank you. How about you, Leah?
Yeah, I would definitely say for me, spirituality is very important to me. So waking up in the morning, I love to have my space to pray. It's just like the most important part of the day for me. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. And then I catch myself, of course, I obviously pray for my children, but at different times in my life, I find myself praying for certain people close to me at that time, like daily, to the point that they have no idea. But yeah, just that's a very, very important part for me and my self-care. But the other part is I love to be out or go to restaurants or do stuff or keep it fun. And I'm not into a whole lot of people, but you know, I have my certain groups of friends that I do that with. And then in terms of just feeling good about being an example to the kids and being also part of the community. There's another group like the Women for Humanities where we just like either do something fun or do some random act of kindness. And I've found that every time we do that random act of kindness, whether it's paying somebody's rent that wasn't expecting it or just showing up in the hospital with $3,000 for a complete stranger, I feel way more rewarded than the person we do it for every single time. And I love including my kids. I always show them the text, what's happening. They ask about it. They ask follow-up questions. So I think all of those things are part of your, you know, spending time with your family. I think it's important to spend time with friends that are within your age group so that your discussions also, it gets funny, especially if you're open and transparent. I've done that with you. So before it's good to have friends that you can be transparent with and not have to have a facade. I think those are the things. And of course, physically, I love to go on hikes. I love nature tremendously. I think that's where I'd find kind of my revival or where I feel myself.
I love that. Thank you, Leah. That's really important. You started off, and I think that this is something that we share in common, but just being really grounded in our faith, and really letting that sort of drive our day, and you know, and what we do and how we live. So thank you, ladies. We'll close it out, but before we close it out with you sharing one tip that you want to leave with moms. Thank you, Leah, for sharing about the work you have been doing with Women for Humanity, the random acts of kindness. I'll be posting that along with the video so that other women can know more about that and, you know, find out how to join if they're interested. And then Selam, you are also really, and you've gotten me more interested in this, but just holistic care, natural care remedies, and also self-care books. You've recommended a number of books to me. So we'll make sure that, you know, we'll link you so that other women can come to you too with any questions, you know, about these areas. But finally, in closing, and I'll start off with just sharing one thing that I would like to leave with the women who are watching. And it's really, grounded in why I decided to start having these discussions with women who I know, women in my life. But the importance of sisterhood, the importance of connection, the importance of coming together, because, you know, you realize that we actually have more in common than we think, and how there are things that we've experienced that we can pass on to one another that will serve as stepping stones for other women, other mothers who may have not gone through what we have gone through, right? And as we do that for one another, we're able to build one another up. And so if there's one thing that I could leave with the women that are watching is lean into community, connect with the women in your lives that that are in your lives, and be okay with being open, be okay with being transparent, right? And be okay with sharing your weaknesses, right? With the right people. I mean, you want to use wisdom, but it's amazing what can come out of that if you create an atmosphere where you can be yourself and you can be be honest with others. You'll find strength in that. So that's what I want to leave with the women. But Salam, how about you? What's one thing that you want to leave with the women that are watching today?
Yeah, what I would want to say is it's okay to be you. And that's something that is just be yourself. And like what you said, find help if you need help. And, we're not all 100%, we're every day we're figuring it out. We're learning, we're growing. So it's okay, to just be you and then find help. If, there are a lot of women in our community, right, that need, and we lean on each other. We learn from each other too. We all have something to offer. So you might be able to offer to someone and someone might, and just find someone you trust. And, it's not figuring all of it at the same time. We're all working together and helping each other. Yeah.
That's good. We're all in progress, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Leah?
So I would say focus on building yourself. Focus on your confidence. If you're a mother, be a confident mother. God gave you that child because you can be a mother and you will be able to mother your children. And everybody has their own, it's like cooking, everybody has their own recipe of how their children will turn out. What they do differently doesn't really, everybody's house is different. So just trust yourself. Trust yourself. Don't look at others and try to necessarily mimic or imitate that. Give it your own twist. Give it your own style. You have a lot to contribute to your own children. I would really focus on your confidence. Be a confident parent. People sense that, the children sense that, the teachers sense that. It empowers you, and you find your confidence as a parent by making those good decisions for me, it was those days where I showed up for my kids and it was difficult to show up, but I did it anyways, or I canceled whatever I needed to do. That builds confidence in us as a parent because you know that you did the right thing. So remember that you need to do these right choices as a parent to build your confidence as a parent. It's not about just the kids that you're raising. Your confidence matters tremendously.
Wow, that was powerful. So in closing, women, ladies, lean into community. 2, be you. And 3, be confident. Don't compare yourself, but be confident in knowing that you have exactly what you need to be the best mother that you can be for your children and to be the best you. So thank you, ladies. This has been so awesome. I look forward to many more conversations. And I forgot to say when we first started, grab your favorite cup, preference of beverage. Mine is coffee. But anyway, really, 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 it's been good. I love you, ladies. I know, we're all super busy with our kids and, running off to work, but thank you. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments and questions, and you can expect women to hit you up also for information. So thank you, Leah. Thank you, Salam.
Thank you, Sawait. Thank you so much for doing that. And
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Bye, ladies.
Bye.